Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Canadian Cereals Customer Program. My name is Lisa Nemeth. I'm the Director of Markets at Cereals Canada, and I'll be your host for this session and the 4 following sessions as well. Thank you for taking the time to join us today so we can share this information with you. I'm coming to you from Winnipeg, Canada, which is in the center of Canada. If you've not been here, we're about 100 kilometers from the US border. And I just wanted to welcome you and let you know that we're really looking forward to sharing a lot of information with you over the 5 sessions. So this is the first of 5, as I've mentioned. And it will provide you with, the whole program will provide you with a broad overview of the wheat industry in Canada. You will learn about the various members of the wheat and cereals value chain and the national initiatives that support sales of wheat from Canada. But first, there are a few technical things that you need to know before we get started. First of all, we do have interpretation available if you haven't found it already. We have an interpretation available in Japanese and Mandarin today, and you can find it by clicking on the globe button at the bottom of the screen as indicated. Also, there is beside the interpretation button a Q&A or question and answer button, which has the 2 word bubbles. And that is where you can send in questions. You can send in questions at any time during the webinar, and we encourage you to please send in as many as you would like. We will take time at the end of each presentation to answer some of the questions. And if we don't get to the one that you've submitted, we apologize, but we want to stay on schedule. But we will answer your question by emailing the answer back to you. Lastly, I wanted to mention that the sessions are being recorded, so you can watch them later or share them with your colleagues. The recordings will be posted on the canadiancereals.ca website. Before we get started, I wanted to ask just 2 questions of you so we can get to know our audience a little bit better. So I'm going to ask if the poll questions can go up now, please. And we'll give you just a few minutes or a few seconds to answer. Which country are you joining today's webinar from? And I'll note that if your country is not listed here, when you are finished the poll, you can go into the Q&A and type in which country you're from. Okay, I think we can move to the second question. Oh, okay. I was told the question is there, you just have to scroll down. So I have scrolled down and perhaps everybody's already answered this. Have you ever been to Winnipeg, Canada, which is where we are right now, home to Cereals Canada and Siggy? And the options are yes for a program, or yes, you've been here, but for other reasons, or no, you've not been here at all. And again, if you want to put any comments in the Q&A, that would be great. Okay, I think we'll take the poll down and we will carry on with the program. Oh, and the host, sorry, is sharing the results. I should have remembered that part. So it looks like we have a good variety of people from various countries, Japan, China, Indonesia, Malaysia, and others. And we do have a fair number of people, about 50%, who have never been to Winnipeg. So very glad to have you here, and we'll have lots of information to share. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to mention before we carry on is the website that I've already mentioned, which is canadiancereals.ca. There's a lot of information on this site, and this is the site where you registered and where we will be posting the presentations when we are through at the end of the seminar. Okay, so we are going to now start with the first presentation, and it will be a discussion of the roles and responsibilities of Cereals Canada and Siggy. And I would like to introduce Dean Diaz, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Cereals Canada, and Dean has led the organization since last year. In his current role, Dean liaises with the Canadian value chain and international customers, contributing to the overall strategy, execution, and successful delivery of activities within the Canadian cereals industry. Welcome, Dean, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm going to quickly take about a minute and share my presentation here for you. Everybody should be able to see this. Can everyone see my presentation? I'm pretty sure you can. So again, good morning, everybody in Asia. Thank you for joining us this morning. We are glad to present our overview presentations to you. Thank you for taking the time. And what I'm going to do is take about 10 to 15 minutes this morning and share what Cereals Canada and Siggy do, and how you as customers can use the services we provide on behalf of the value chain in Canada. So to start with, who are we? Who are we as Cereals Canada? In simplest words, I would say we are the #1 promoter of Canadian cereals. And you might ask, how do we do this? I would say, the easiest way to explain this is we bring the entire value chain in Canada, which involves the farmers, the exporters, the developers, and the processors in Canada together. And together, we are committed to providing support to our customers to make sure that you, as our customer, is successful. So we understand that as a country that only has 37 million people, and we have about 35 million tons of wheat grown in Canada, that export market is everything for us. And we need to support our customers on everything that we can do. So I've just been told my share screen is not working, so I'm just going to retry this again. How about now? Does that work? Okay, how about now? Okay, I'm going to retry this again. Can still see some of my screen, so hopefully you will be okay to follow through. off with in classroom. Sure.
All right. I hope you can hear me now. Just switched classrooms. Sorry for those technical difficulties. I will start my presentation over again. As I was mentioning, Cereals Canada and Siggy, based out of Winnipeg, we provide multiple different types of support for our customers. But just wanted to start off with our vision statement. And our vision is, we are the #1 promoter of Canadian cereals. And I was mentioning earlier, the way we do this is by bringing the entire value chain together. And what I mean by the entire value chain, it's the farmers, the exporters, the developers, and the processors to have a common voice and to commonly commit to delivering the best in-class customer support for our customers. So here is a quick look at all of our members. Our membership spans from east to the west coast. So all the producer members from the east to the west. We have life science companies, we have exporters, and we also have processors as part of our membership. The board structure is 50-50. So we have 50% industry partners and 50% farmers on the board. So it's 16 board members with 8 on each side. So as I was mentioning earlier too, Canada is a big country. We have about 37 million people living in Canada, and we grow about 35 million tons of wheat. So we understand that most of the wheat that we grow is meant for export markets, and you as customers are extremely important for us. So most of you are used to buying Canadian spring wheat and amber durum. There's also some wheat grown in Ontario, which one of our members, Grain Farmers of Ontario, will be speaking about later on. But I just wanted to give you a quick snapshot of where spring wheat is grown. And as you can see, CWRS and CPSR is mostly grown in the western provinces, which is Manitoba, Alberta, and Saskatchewan. And then durum wheat is grown in a smaller area than that, which is in Saskatchewan and in Alberta. And this graph right here kind of shows the breakdown of all the classes of wheat we grow in Canada. And as you can see, the lion's share of the wheat class that is grown in Canada is CWRS, which is about 62%, with quad being 8%, and then CPSR at about 6%. And then we have other wheat classes. As I mentioned, there is some winter wheat and soft wheat grown in Canada, but I'll let GFO present that later on in today's session. So basically, I wanted to give you a highlights on what we do as Cereals Canada. Today's presentation is going to be focused mostly on markets. We won't be talking about industry support. So let's talk about markets. And as you can see, in front of us, all those small dots are basically all the countries and places that we've actually gone in and done some support, either in person or we've gotten customers coming to Canada on a program and so you can see that it's a pretty wide reach that we have. Last year, Canadian wheat was exported to more than 70 different countries. So when it comes to markets, I would say, we do multiple different things that support you as customers. One of them is market access issues. One of the roles we play within the industry is to bring the value chain together and then work with our Canadian government to ensure that we can tackle any market access concerns that are coming up in different countries. So if you hear about phytosanitary restrictions, if you hear about MRLs and things like that within your country that could cause regulatory issues and stop a shipment of Canadian wheat coming into your country, please let us know. It's better to be proactive than reactive when it comes to these things. So if you can inform us prior to these becoming concerns, that would be appreciated. But we would literally bring our entire value chain together to make sure that we can tackle these market access concerns for you. Then there's, market planning, maintenance, and development. As I mentioned, most of the crop that we grow is exported, but we pride ourselves in quality. And I would say the three topics down there that you see, reliable, consistent, quality, is something that we are proud of as Canadians. And as Canadian wheat suppliers, we want to make sure that the Canadian wheat that you buy meets your needs and meets your customers' needs. So we want to understand from you, how you use the crop and what type of varieties and classes can deliver that type of quality that you need to make the product that you want to make in your country. How do we do that? We have multiple different training programs. For those of you that said that you were here in Winnipeg, you were probably part of one of these programs, as you can see in the pictures. We do technical exchange programs where we have customers coming into Canada to learn about the entire value chain. So that includes a visit to a farm, a visit to a primary elevator, and also a visit to a terminal elevator when the grain is being loaded onto a ship. We also do harvest assessment, which is part of our new crop missions. And this year we provided new crop seminars online on the CanadianCereals.ca site, which is the one you have logged into today as well. We plan to do these again this year. Unfortunately, I don't think by November or December we would be able to travel. So most of the seminars this year will also be done through a virtual session. So please follow the CanadianCereals.ca website and we will provide the information for you. I should mention that the new crop missions are not just a Cereals Canada effort. We work with the entire value chain. So we have a producer at that event. We do have exporters. We have the Canadian Grain Commission. We have the Grain Farmers of Ontario as well as part of our new crop seminars. So we do a lot of work in supporting customers, but we also understand that we need to be at the front lines of improving quality at all times. So when we hear from you, if there is any concerns about quality or you want different things or trends and functionality that you're looking for, we become the link between you as customers and the value chain here. So we bring that information back and we inform our value chain on what type of research priorities are needed, what type of varieties should be in the pipeline, and what type of research we need to do to make sure that you as customers are successful. And then I'll just touch on the industry support piece, and I'm just going to mention one of these activities that could be key for you, which is the National Wheat Nutrition Strategy. We have recently taken on a new project where we want to talk about the nutritional properties of wheat and all of the misinformation out there about the eating wheat and the diet out there. So we are going to be taking on this project. We are going to have a lot of information available If you are interested in any of those topics and data that you can use to promote to your consumers or customers, please let us know. We will be more than happy to share our efforts in this particular matter. But that's about it. I'm here for questions. If there is any questions right now, or at the end of the session as well, I will be around for questions. Lisa, up to you.
Thanks, Dean, very much for that intro. And I do have at least one question for you. It sounds like there's some people interested maybe in joining SIGI programs in the future. The question is, will there be opportunities to join SIGI programs? Webinars are a great resource, but training and support with hands-on experience and discussing concerns with Norbert, Yulia, and Christina, who's the managers of the technology areas at SIGI, has helped our staff in the past.
Oh, yes, absolutely. What I would say is, unfortunately, the last 2 years, or 2020 and 2021, we might not have any travel, but the goal is, to still have customers coming into Canada to provide this type of technical exchanges where you can have these dialogue between experts. And that is what SIGI will be continuing to do and support our customers. If there is requests coming from your staff in your own companies, what I would say is talk to your supplier, the Canadian wheat supplier, and ask them to nominate you to one of the programs in Canada. And then they will send us the name coming from one of our wheat exporters. And that way we can then put you on the list to invite you for future programs.
Great. Well, I think I'm going to have to stop there so we can stay on track. Thank you so much, Dean. And we'll move into the next presentation. And of course, I have to also echo Dean's comments. We are all really looking forward to seeing you all again in person. We miss you all very much, and find these webinars a really useful way to communicate, but that one-on-one interaction, we are really looking forward to seeing you in market and also back here at SIGI in our technical areas. So I'm going to move along to the next presentation, which is on the CMBTC, or Canadian Malting Barley Technical Center, and it will be an overview of CMBTC. I am going to introduce Peter Watts to do this overview. Peter has been serving as Managing Director of the Canadian Malting Barley Technical Center since 2014. Peter brings more than 20 years of experience in agribusiness, marketing, and strategic planning to the domestic and international agriculture sector. So welcome, Peter, and it's over to you.
Thanks, Lisa. Good morning, everyone. So now we're going to talk about barley. The Canadian Malting Barley Technical Center is a member-based, independent, not-for-profit research facility established in 2000 that serves the Canadian barley value chain. We conduct applied research with our micro and pilot scale malting and brewing facilities to test and evaluate the quality and promote Canadian barley and malt. We provide technical services and marketing support to our stakeholders, including breeders, farmers, seed companies, exporters and importers, and of course, our maltsters and brewer customers in the international marketplace. The CMBTC has 26 members from the Canadian barley value chain, including members from Canada and also international members from countries such as China and the United States. Canada is the world's 4th largest barley producer. In 2020, we produced 10.7 million tons, just a little ahead of Australia and a little behind Germany. And with strong prices this year, we do expect Canadian barley production to rise between 5 and 10%. Barley is Canada's 4th largest crop after wheat, canola, and corn. Canada exports malting, feed, and food barley, accounting for 12% of global barley trade. You can see that in 2020, Canada exported about 3.5, is forecast to export about 3.5 million tons of barley, making it the 5th largest exporter in the world. Canada is also the world's 3rd largest malt exporter, accounting for about 12% of global malt trade. So we're number 3 behind Belgium and Australia. So we're selling this malt to our brewer customers in countries around the world. So like Cereals Canada, the CMBTC provides technical services to the Canadian barley value chain and to our customers around the world. Our facilities include micro and pilot scale malting. You can see our 75 kilogram pilot malt plant on the left with our Director of Operations, Dr. Yushu Lee. And on the right, you can see our micro malting system, which can process 40 samples. We also have micro and pilot scale brewing facilities to process our malt into beer and evaluate the performance of Canadian barley from field to glass. So you can see on the left, that's a 3 hectoliter pilot brewing system. And we also have a 10-liter microbrewing system. The CMBTC conducts new crop quality and new variety performance evaluation using our malting and brewing facilities. New crop samples of major varieties are sourced from across Canada each year with full barley and malt quality evaluation. Newly registered malting barley varieties are evaluated for their quality and processing characteristics, and all data is shared with the industry and our buyers around the world. The CMBTC provides technical services to the value chain and our customers in international markets, both remotely and on site. In addition to technical services, we provide marketing support to the Canadian barley value chain to support the commercialization of Canadian malting and feed barley. The CMBTC conducts outgoing missions to visit customers in our export markets, to provide crop updates, data on new varieties, and to learn about customer quality requirements. We host incoming missions for our customers from around the world to visit farms, research facilities, elevators, processors, and terminal elevators. The CMBTC conducts assessments, quality assessments of each cargo of Canadian malting barley that's shipped to export markets. We assess the quality and performance of the barley here in Winnipeg using our lab and processing facilities. A 50 kilogram sample is shipped from the export position to Winnipeg, processed in our pilot malting and brewing system, and a comprehensive report is generated and provided to the buyer. The CMBTC works with the industry, both sellers and buyers, to facilitate the acceptance of new malting barley varieties, To do this, we coordinate production trials with end users, typically 250 to 1,000 tons of promising new varieties are sent to customers in major markets for malting and brewing performance at a commercial scale. And like Cereals Canada, the CMVTC conducts technical exchange, training and education programs under the Malt Academy, providing customers and members training here in Winnipeg, hands-on training here in Winnipeg, in our malt plant and in our brewery. So hopefully one day soon you can come and join us in Winnipeg on one of our courses. At the end of the day, the mission of the CMVTC is to ensure Canada is a leader in supplying high-quality barley and malt to the global livestock, malting, and brewing industries, meeting the needs of end users in Canada and around the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. We do have a question, and so I'll ask you that one if you don't mind before you go.
Fire away.
The question is, can anyone attend the Malt Academy training, or do you have to be invited?
Anyone can attend the Malt Academy if they're interested. They simply have to get in touch with us and make those arrangements. At this time, our Malt Academy courses are suspended, but we do hope that in the next 6 to 12 months, we will start them up again. We typically hold 4 to 5 programs annually.
Great, thanks a lot. I'm going to close there because we want to stay on schedule. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, so I am going to now move forward to the next presentation. And this is a presentation coming from Eastern Canada, Ontario. And it is on the organization Grain Farmers of Ontario. And we have with us today Dr. Paul Hoekstra, who joined the Grain Farmers of Ontario in last year, September 2020, as the Vice President, Strategic Development. In his role, Paul is responsible for the research, agronomy, market development, and communications teams. So I'd like to invite Paul to join us. And before I do, I just want to mention that if you have a question, please do type it into the Q&A section versus raising your hand. We are not opening up to questions verbally. We will only be taking questions through the Q&A function. So please submit your questions that way. So Paul, I'd like you to join now for your presentation.
Thanks, Lisa. I'm unable to share my video. It says the host has stopped it.
Okay, we'll check that out on our end. Just
Sure.
one moment.
In the meantime, I can share my screen and we'll start the presentation to keep us on track.
Okay, looks like you're up and ready to go now. We just need your video on.
Okay. No, it still says it's can't start the video because the host has stopped. That's okay. You don't need to see me right now. You guys can figure that out, and we'll just continue on here. Well, thank you. Thanks, Lisa, and thanks to the Cereals Canada team for the invitation today. Good morning to all of you. Thank you for your time and attention. As Lisa mentioned, my name is Paul Hoekstra. I'm the Vice President of the Grain Farmers of Ontario. Over the next few minutes, I'll give you an overview of what our organization does, what our members do as farmers, and how we help to raise and elevate our sector. For the half of you who've been to Winnipeg and may know, or those who may know a little bit about the geography of Canada, Ontario is one province east of Winnipeg, Manitoba. We're surrounded by the Great Lakes. We border New York State, Pennsylvania, Michigan. We have a very unique microclimate compared to other parts of Canada and certainly the prairies. And so with that comes a very unique production system. As I mentioned, the Grain Farmers of Ontario is a farmer organization. We represent over 28,000 farmer members in the province that farm every year over 6 million acres of barley, corn, oats, soybeans, and wheat. Our organization is extremely farmer focused. In fact, that's all we think about. Our mission is to build, defend, and promote an inclusive, innovative, and sustainable business environment that enables grain farmers, our members, the opportunity to prosper. In short, we live for a vision of thriving farms, responsible production, trusted grain farmers. Next few slides, I want to give you a bit of an overview of our market and what our members produce. Grain Farmers of Ontario represent 5 major crops, with corn, soybeans, and wheat being the major ones produced in the province. For the purpose of this presentation, I'll focus most of my comments on wheat. And last year we had over 1 million acres of wheat planted in the province with nearly 2.5 million metric tons harvested. As Dean mentioned at the beginning of today's presentation, our market in Ontario is different than that of Western Canada. By comparison to the prairies, our market in Ontario is primarily made up of winter wheat, with soft red winter wheat being the dominant cereal variety produced. Hard red winter wheat is close to second. The soft red winter wheat is a great choice for confectionery products, for baking, for crackers, etc. And it is, as I mentioned, the primary cereal variety produced in the province. It's also note that production of on an acre basis of winter wheat has increased on a year-by-year basis, up to about 83 bushels per acre last year, which is a 6 bushel per acre increase over the year before. Now that you have a bit of a flavor for what our farmers produce, I want to sort of take a step back and talk about the Grain Farmers of Ontario as an organization. As an organization, we focus on helping our members in this sector thrive through a number of activities. This is all driven by our strategic plan, which was recently updated and focuses in on a few key areas. The first, government advocacy and government relations. This is advocacy and advocate work that advocates for the policy environment to ensure the sustainable future for farming in the province. Market development is the second. In that case, we're looking to increase the use and value of Ontario grains used both domestically and abroad. The next is communications. With having 28,000 members, it's important for them to become aware of our activities and become engaged. So we provide farmer members with the tools and knowledge available to become economically sustainable while still meeting their commitments to the environment and society. The next is in research and innovation, as well as agronomy, conducting support, research, innovation, and knowledge transfer to our farmer members to make sure they can have the right science, the right tools available to grow the best crop. And lastly, as an organization, we're committed to living by our values and being farmer focused in everything we do. For the next little bit, I'm going to focus on just a few key areas for this presentation, primarily focused in on research and innovation, as well as market development. First, with research and innovation, it's important that farmers have the best tools available to grow the best crop. They need to do so, they need access to the best science and data. Grain Farmers of Ontario conducts a variety of research in partnership with organizations from across the province, from across the country and North America to help our farmers and our sector. Research priorities are constructed based on consultation with our members, as well as consultation with the sector to make sure the products we harvest meet the needs of our customers. Grain Farmers of Ontario commits nearly $2 million every single year to support key research priorities. Last year, these funds funded over 62 projects. These funds come directly from our members and leverage existing industry or government data sources, pardon me. The priorities, as I mentioned, are focused by committee, by our farmer members, and are really designed to meet the end goal of the consumer. The other part of my team is on the market development aspect. There are a number of key focus areas for this team: domestic market retention and expansion, international market development, sustainability, and market access. Dean mentioned earlier market access with MRLs and biotechnology. That's a key part of what we do. I'm not going to touch on that here today, but that is very much up front and center for us, making sure that our harvested commodities are of value and have the ability to be used globally. So over the next little while, I'm just going to touch on new and existing markets, as well as sustainability in our efforts in that space. In market development, traditional sense of market development, we have a number of initiatives underway to help support our farmers, but also the grain sector. The first is our grains analytical testing laboratory that we have here in Ontario. This joint venture that we have in place has been around since 2016, and it conducts all of the quality analysis that we have for the wheat harvest survey that we conduct every single year. This information provides valuable data on the quality of the harvest and how the harvested grains for the various wheat categories that we grow here in the province, how those harvested grains can be used most effectively. We also have a dedicated commercial manager that serves as a valuable technical resource for our industry and for our customers. We also, one of the main projects that this group is doing right now is conducting an extensive multi-year research project focused on the opportunities to look at increasing Ontario wheat and flour blends. We also produce a variety of technical bulletins for our customers on these wheat surveys that are available on our website as well. So you can see the quality of our wheat products every single year for you to make the best decisions for your operation. Another key area for our market development team is our Grains Innovation Fund. This fund is funded solely by our farmer members as a way of supporting the development of new market opportunities for our harvested products. This is the 11th year of the program, and it's invested over $1.2 million in over 45 projects to help develop new market opportunities for Ontario grains, including wheat. These start from everywhere from R&D and basic research for new ventures, all the way to products that could touch the customer, that customers could buy. So it really is investing in the value chain as farmers. this slide is a bit self-evident. We, of course, as a farmer member organization, support and conduct a variety of international trade missions. These are extremely important to us. Opportunities like today are so valuable, and thank you for your time. They're so important, and we, of course, miss the face-to-face interaction, but they're so important in developing those key relationships with key export markets like yourself. They provide the opportunity for us to understand your needs, as Dean mentioned earlier. They provide a new opportunity for our grains and for our farmers. In partnership with organizations like Cereals Canada, like Soy Canada, we've participated in a number of international trade missions in Europe and in Asia. We also have conducted a number of outgoing and incoming missions ourselves with Europe and soon to be the UK as well. Last bucket I want to touch on today is our sustainability initiatives. Sustainability is an important lens for which the public, consumers, and other stakeholders are now viewing agriculture. And Ontario grain farmers have an amazing story to tell. Over the last few decades, by using best practices and best technology, Ontario grain farmers have been able to greatly reduce their carbon footprint, at the same time been able to increase efficiencies on the farm, growing more food from the same pieces of land. Also, by using best agricultural practices, we've been able to decrease soil erosion on our farms, decreasing erosion, increasing soil health. This is only the beginning. We look forward to increasing our efforts and having even a better story for years to come. In addition to our own efforts and the efforts of our farmers, the Grain Farmers of Ontario is involved in a number of sustainability projects, from Field to Market Canada, which brings together the complete value chain to define and look for ways to enhance sustainability efforts across our value chain. The SAI platform, which is a global food initiative to define best sustainable practices for farmers to adopt. And lastly, for our nutrient stewardship. This is a program designed for farmers and retailers to look at how we can best use nutrients that use them judiciously, but also use them in a way that maximizes yields, but also minimizes environmental impact. So lastly, I'll just conclude by saying the Grain Farmers of Ontario operate a strong voice for the Ontario grain farmer, as well as a resource and advocate for the entire grain sector. It goes without saying that agriculture continues to face a number of challenges, from global trade to ever-evolving consumer demands. But these challenges represent opportunities we see for the grain sector. We have a safe, reliable food supply, a very positive sustainability story. As Canadians, we have a very predictable science-based policies, and we have the world's best agricultural practices, from which we grow the best crops that you may find of value to your consumers. With that, I say thank you for your time. My contact information is here, and I welcome any questions both today or in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul. We did have one question, well, two questions. The first one is, will your presentation be available for the viewers? And the answer is yes. All presentations will be made available to everybody who is signed up. We will be sending a copy to you within the next couple of days. But also at the end of all 5 of the series of presentations, we will be posting all of the presentations on the canadiancereals.ca website. So you'll have 2 opportunities to get that presentation. The other question is, where can someone find out more about wheat quality from Ontario?
Thanks, Lisa. Great question. All that information is available on our website at gfo.ca. It's under market development. You can find, it'll be updated very soon as we're tallying the information from the 2020 harvest. That'll be populated there, as well as information as to where you can purchase grains as well, and other such information. So the website's the best spot for that.
Perfect. And as you mentioned at the end of your presentation, your contact information is there as well. So people can always go through you as well, I assume. So
Absolutely.
thanks again very much for your presentation. And I'm going to have to move on so we can stay on time. And so we're going to move into the next presentation. Thank you so much, Paul.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so our last presentation today is on the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, also known as CFIA. And here today to present is Doug Windmill. Doug will provide an overview of CFIA's structure with a focus on all the activities related to issuing phytosanitary certificates on grain exports. Doug has been working in the inspection area for over 30 years. The last 20, the majority of Doug's work has been related to phytosanitary certification of grain exports from Canada. This includes CFIA export programs and the clarification of foreign plant quarantine import requirements and bilateral negotiations. So a lot of expertise going into this presentation today. So I'd like to invite Doug to start his presentation. Welcome, Doug.
Great, thank you very much, Lisa. Just to confirm, can you see my presentation?
Yep, it looks great to me.
Great, one hurdle done.
And I should have mentioned that Doug's coming from our neighboring province of Saskatchewan. Welcome from Saskatchewan as well.
Sure, thank you very much, Lisa. And it's my pleasure to meet with this group this afternoon and talk a little bit about the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. As Lisa mentioned, I've worked here in Saskatoon, which is about 800 kilometers northwest of Winnipeg for over 30 years now, and since the agency was created in 1997. Over the next 15 or 20 minutes, I'll provide a brief overview of a few different issues. I'll talk about the Canadian Food Inspection Agency's role as a plant protection organization in Canada. I'll talk about export certification of plant and plant products in very general terms. And then I'll talk about CFIA's export certification of grain and grain products from Canada. And finally, touch on a few opportunities and challenges. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency is Canada's national plant protection organization, and that's a designation that the International Plant Protection Convention has created, which is a treaty that is signed by over 200 countries. We would be considered analogous to, in the United States, to the Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service of the United States Department of Agriculture. Our colleagues in China would be the General Administration of Customs China. In Japan, our counterparts, the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, and so on. So our activities are guided by the International Plant Protection Convention. We work in both import, export, and domestic. One of the things we do on imports is to protect our own agricultural and forestry agro-resource bases from the introduction of new quarantine pests. So we want to prevent the introduction of new pests, and that can be an insect or a disease or a weed species that has the potential to damage Canada's own domestic agricultural and forestry resource base. The International Plant Protection Convention encourages neighboring countries to develop regional plant protection organizations, and the CFS, Canadian Food Inspection Agency, is a member of NAPO, the North American Plant Health Organization, North American Plant Protection Organization, along with the United States Department of Agriculture, APHIS, and Mexico, SENASICA. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency is a federal government agency. We have a president that reports to both the Minister of Agriculture and the Minister of Health. We have three very distinct business lines, and that includes food safety, animal health, and plant health. We're a science-based regulatory organization with over 13 different labs located across Canada that support us in our activities, including the export certification of grain. And in total, we have over 6,000 employees working in Canada. I mentioned that we have a mandate in imports, and that's to stop or prevent the introduction of new plant pests into Canada. We do this through a number of mechanisms, including first of all, we establish phytosanitary requirements so that Canadian importers know what standards must be met or what requirements must be met prior to import. We issue import permits to Canadian importers, and that helps communicate import requirements to them, and they're aware of what requirements must be met. In cases, we may pre-approve importing facilities if they're involved with an additional processing or measures that further mitigate the risk following import. And finally, we monitor imports through inspecting and through our inspection staff, taking representative samples of shipments and verifying that they comply with our import requirements. With respect to exports, as the National Plant Protection Organization, we're the only organization in Canada that issues phytosanitary certificates for plants and plant products. We base certification on a number of different criteria, including the inspection of facilities prior to export, sampling and testing of export shipments, and ongoing pest surveys done within Canada to verify or ensure that certain pests that we're being asked to certify shipments free of are not established in Canada. The phytosanitary certificate is a government-to-government document that communicates that the shipment meets the plant quarantine import requirements of the importing country. It's issued only when it's a requirement, it's issued only when it is a requirement of the plant health authorities of the importing country. It's not per se a trade document, although we understand that it's necessary for trade to be facilitated. In addition to issuing phytosanitary certificates, we work on expanding and maintaining market access for Canadian plant and plant products internationally with respect to phytosanitary requirements. And we have a strong partnership with other Government of Canada organizations, including Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, Global Affairs Canada. We work very closely with our trade counselors and also our stakeholder associations in Canada, including organizations such as Cereals Canada. We conduct various domestic programs or domestic activities in Canada to both support our exports and, for example, we conduct national surveys for various pests to confirm either their absence or that their distribution remains very limited within a specific geographic area. We also regulate the movement of some commodities domestically within Canada to prevent the spread of certain pests that are quarantine status or regulated within Canada. And again, I'd like to mention and highlight the partnerships we have with organizations such as the Canadian Grain Commission and Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada. Canada issues, again, the CFIA is the lone body that issues phytosanitary certificates in Canada. Our phytosanitary certificates follow the model or the example of the International Plant Protection Convention. They follow the requirements or the stipulations laid out in policy in Canada under the Plant Protection Act and regulations, as well as CFIA Policy Directive D9906, which summarizes our policy on the issuance of phytosanitary certificates. And most important, the phytosanitary certificate addresses the import requirements of the importing country. So again, the phytosanitary certificate is issued to communicate that the commodity meets the plant quarantine import requirements of the importing country. In order for us to issue phytosanitary certificates, it's very important that we have a clear understanding of what the foreign plant quarantine import requirements are. The CFIA maintains a database of importing country requirements that we share with exporters as required. Our phytosanitary certificates are based on either inspection of representative samples of the commodity, the inspection of the entire commodity, or the inspection of exporting facilities. Now, with respect, specifically with respect to the certification of grain export shipments, Canada issues approximately 45,000 phytosanitary certificates each year to over 125 countries for a wide range of agricultural commodities, both raw grain and processed grain products. With respect to grain exports, our phytosanitary certificates are really based on 3 pillars or 3 foundations. With respect to bulk vessel export shipments, we inspect the port terminal elevators on a regular basis. We inspect ship holds prior to loading, and we also take official phytosanitary samples and examine them to confirm that the shipment meets foreign import requirements. And I'll talk about each of those elements in a little bit more detail. The terminal grain elevator inspection program in Canada is delivered by either Canadian Grain Commission or Canadian Food Inspection Agency inspectors. We have a memorandum of understanding with the Canadian Grain Commission that allows us to maximize resources and minimize overlap or duplication of services across Canada. So in the majority of the port terminal elevators, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, the Canadian Grain Commission does the inspections on our behalf. During those elevator inspections, we assess and check overall sanitation conditions in the facilities. We look for the presence of stored grain product pests, and when necessary, additional samples or specimens are submitted to either CFIA or Canadian Grain Commission labs to confirm the species of insect infestation, or the species of insect that has been identified. Each year, Canadian Food Inspection Agency inspectors look at approximately 750 to 800 bulk vessels. Each hold is inspected prior to loading being approved. We inspect the vessel holds to ensure that they're not infested with stored product insects from previous cargoes. And we also ensure that there's no barriers to the inspection of holds, including things like scale and extraneous cargo from previous cargoes. And finally, the third pillar or the third element is the official sampling of export cargoes. Official samples, whether it's be representative of bulk vessel shipments or containerized shipments, are officially sampled for phytosanitary purposes. These samples are examined and tested to confirm freedom from quarantine pests regulated by the importing country. The range or the level or the scope of the testing that we complete is totally dependent on the importing country's requirements. But we do have a capability of testing for a full range of pests, including testing and visual identification for insects in soil, testing for weed seed species, and testing for diseases and nematodes. And again, the testing that we do is very much dependent on what the plant quarantine import requirements are for the importing country. So that summarizes our procedure for the issuance of phytosanitary certificates. We work very closely with Canadian exporters who make the applications to us. We communicate the results to them, and we ensure that the proper sampling and testing has been completed prior to the issuance of phytosanitary certificates. With respect to some of the opportunities and challenges that we face, we're currently undergoing, the International Plant Protection is currently developing a model for electronic certification, or eCert, where exporting countries will electronically communicate the phytosanitary certificate to the plant quarantine import requirements, or to the plant quarantine authorities in the importing country. So it's a direct transmission of phytosanitary certificates from the exporting country's plant protection organization to the importing country's plant protection organization. So Canada is currently developing the software for that. We probably anticipate that it'll be implemented in the next 1 to 2 years. And that'll mark a fairly a significant change in the way we have been issuing phytosanitary certificates for the last 50 years. In terms of the challenges that the agency faces and Canadian exporters face, importing countries continue to develop and change plant quarantine import requirements. So it's very important that we keep aware of what those changes are, and we work with countries to ensure that we can meet those requirements. A certain trend that we've seen over the last 10 years probably is that more countries now, the plant quarantine authorities in importing countries, are more and more considering weed seeds to be quarantine pests. And that's a little bit of a departure on how things were previously, where the most importing countries were probably more focused on insects, the prevention of the insects of quarantine species, rather than focusing on weed seeds. But renewed interest in protecting biodiversity and preventing the introduction of invasive weeds into countries is resulting in many more countries putting emphasis on weed seeds in their import requirements. So again, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today. My information's here on the slide. If you do have any questions regarding foreign import requirements or the Canadian Food Inspection Agency's export certification programs for wheat and grain products, wheat and other grains and processed grain products, please don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. We do have a question that has come in. So it's sort of a two-part question. So just bear with me. It's from, the question is, most of the cargo or wheat shipped to a mill in Indonesia, there's no fumigation certificate or no treatment mentioned in the phytosanitary certificate. So the fumigation is done in the silos by their local plant quarantine office. The question is, why is there no fumigation on the wheat? And could we request fumigation treatment before shipment?
Okay, good question. Fairly specific to Indonesia, and we have had some engagement with our plant health counterparts in Indonesia over the past year, I would say. A country can establish mandatory fumigation as a plant quarantine import requirement. The position of Canada is that mandatory fumigation of Canadian wheat or other grains is not necessary. We have a very strong system in place from the field to through the transportation and the storage system and including the preparation and certification of grain from Canada that we feel puts us in a very strong position that mandatory fumigation of Canadian grain should not be a requirement, plant quarantine import requirement. And so those are the discussions we have with the plant quarantine officials in foreign countries when there is discussions about implementing mandatory requirements for Canadian grain. Again, we're very confident that through the measures that we take in certifying both containerized shipments and bulk vessel shipments, that we can prepare them as being compliant with the foreign countries' import requirements. If the concern is the presence of cosmopolitan or non-quarantine insects, then our position would be that it's best that is left as a contractual requirement between exporters and importers rather than a mandatory requirement implemented by the plant health authorities in the importing country. So those are the types of the ongoing discussions that we have. In a case where mandatory fumigation is a plant quarantine requirement, we've done our best to negotiate its removal. Then if it is an actual requirement, then exporters would have to take those measures to fumigate the shipment, and we would have to include that fumigation information on the treatment section of our phytosanitary certificate. But in our position is that it's seldom technically justified and really not necessary for Canadian grain exports.
Okay, so before we leave that topic, there is a follow-up question, and that is, if fumigation is not necessary for Canadian wheat, could we have the agreement made with the Indonesian plant quarantine for their reference?
Yeah, and that is the type of thing that we work on. If mandatory fumigation is a requirement, if mandatory fumigation is a requirement of the importing country's plant quarantine import requirements, it'll often appear on the import permit, and that will be the evidence that it is has been a requirement that's been implemented. That would be our catalyst to engage with our plant health counterparts in a country like Indonesia, and to have a discussion with them on a technical level about why we feel mandatory fumigation is not technically needed or justified, but also to have a meaningful exchange with them to find out why they think mandatory fumigation is required. We work very closely with the Canadian Grain Commission. They have incremental samples taken during the loading of vessels and examined for the presence of stored product insects. So there's no shortage of data on our end to support our position that mandatory fumigation isn't required. But it is a discussion that needs to take place between plant health organizations of the exporting country and the importing country.
Thank you, Doug. I think that was a great exchange and a really good opportunity for that direct contact. I want to just point out that Doug's email address is on the screen. And if anybody has follow-up questions for Doug, you can contact him directly, or please feel free to send any more questions in through the CanadianCereals.ca website, and we could also forward them to Doug from there. So thank you so much, Doug. Appreciate it. And that's all the questions we have for now. Thanks very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
So that's it for our session today. We deliberately have been keeping the sessions short to keep your attention, and hope that you found the presentations today to be interesting. I just want to remind you that the second session will be on Thursday morning at the same time. It will be focusing on the Canadian Grain Commission, an overview of their organization, and then a follow-up with a session in their grading and inspection area to just dive a little bit deeper into how they do the inspection at the Canadian Grain Commission of the wheat going to you as customers. So I'd like to, again, thank you very much for attending today. I hope you enjoyed the seminar. If you have any questions, you have our contact information, and we are always happy to take any questions from you now and in the future. So looking forward to seeing you on Tuesday, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much.